Welcome to Risk Roundup. As traditional computers give way to tablets and smartphones, Internet of Things, and more, the need for symmetric communication between we, the humans, and different forms of computers is becoming essential. We are at a stage where different forms of computers and machines are not just receivers of human instructions, but they are collaborators that are able to connect a full range of natural modes, including language, gesture, facial, or other expressions that are hands free and non visual. And it is becoming so more important than ever. As we see communication between man and machine is evolving, there are strong indicators that in the coming years we will move past a QWERTY and touchscreen world and be able to talk to our electronic devices or computers to communicate with them. This is largely due to advances in conversational AI, that means artificial intelligence, and will undoubtedly have a huge implication in the way we do things in the coming years. The emerging AI powered conversational interface could completely redefine in how individuals and entities across nations, its government, industries, organizations, and academia operate. To discuss conversational AI further, I am delighted to welcome Dr. Deepak Srivastava to Risk Roundup. Dr. Srivastava is the co-founder and CEO of Taechyon Robotics. In addition, he is an award-winning ex-NASA technologist and a serial entrepreneur with his current startup, Taechyon Robotics, focused on AI, robotics, interactive voice response devices, chatbots, and IoT for home and enterprise markets in healthcare, hospitality, gaming, and customer service industries. He is based in United States. Welcome, Dr. Srivastava. We are so very honored to have you on Risk Roundup.
Thank you very much for inviting. You have a very interesting forum. It addresses very pertinent issues and so on a variety of new technology. I'm impressed by what I have checked your background. So thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for your kind words, Dr. Srivastava. So, for the benefit of our global viewers and listeners, let's begin by a very basic question. What is conversational AI?
Yes, so actually, if you try to define even a robot as compared to a human being, what are the essential skill sets or quality? Ability to talk, ability to see, scan, and understand things, and then ability to move and do some physical or mechanical functions. So if we have three capabilities, then you have a working, functioning, walking, talking robot, right? So one of the key part is ability to talk. And that's where when we use artificial intelligence to use voice-based commands to talk with a machine and ask machine to do it at the human-machine interface, that is the area of conversational AI.
Yes, no, that's a very good description. So basically, these AI systems are computer systems that can communicate with not just computers, but with people in
That's right.
ways that feels natural, and then they solve problems that could help us humans, and they get smarter over time. So that is a pretty amazing advances that we are seeing. So at this point, what does conversational AI is able to do?
So at this point, actually, those who are a little bit familiar with the field, there are, at least in the Western market and even in Eastern countries, very popular devices are coming up, and you may have heard about it. For example, from Amazon, you have Alexa, which has the ecosystem of devices. Then and even before that, I think since iPhone is very popular, so let me pick up that example. So Siri is a character or a personality, which is a purely a voice-based interface or interaction with the devices. And that provides, actually, Apple was the first one to provide that first voice-based human-machine interface. And so we have the ability, we can talk to it, but mainly at this stage, it is about giving some command. And in response to your command, it performs certain tasks and some utilities. So even though the topic we are talking about is conversational AI, I would put some qualifier. We are not there yet. We are almost there, and we are getting into it. And I will explain a little bit more as we go along.
Oh no, no, I understand that. So when you say the man-machine interface that we are developing, or these conversational man-machine
Agents, yeah.
platforms that we are developing, what is the status on that? What are the different platforms that are available, and where we are able to go with the technical capability that we have at this point?
Yes. So if you, at this stage, there are 4 or 5 dominant platform, and they are done by big corporations, and there are some small companies or startups like ours. We have our own platform as well, and I'll tell you the differences as well. So major platforms which are very popular on available all over the place, like you have Siri from Apple, and then you have Alexa from Amazon, then you have Hey Google from Google, then you have Cortana from Microsoft, then you have Watson from IBM, and then there is also some smaller ones, but these are big players, Bixby from Samsung. So if you think about it, all of these are huge, big players or big corporations. And then there is a small company like us. We have our own, and but that's where the my Silicon Valley attitude comes in, is that there's no reason not to do it if only big players are doing it, as long as we have some differentiation and we are willing to cross the line. So we have our own, and its name is Smirk. And we, yeah.
Absolutely. You're right about that, there's no reason to stop. But when you say that there are so many different platforms being developed, some large corporations are like Microsoft, Google, and Facebook, probably,
Facebook also has it, yes.
they all have their own platforms. And the entrepreneurs like you, startups, small organizations, they're also creating their own platforms. So are these all platforms open in nature, or you are all developing, very closed ecosystem on your own?
So by definition, then if you then again step back and think about it, all the platforms developed by all the big players, which I just mentioned, they are actually closed, because at the end of the day, it's a business. And from the business viewpoint, if they have to develop skill sets, they have to develop applications, if they have to develop the whole business ecosystem around capabilities, services, products around it. So basically, they would like to have a control on that. So in a sense, Google's platform is based on underlying operating system, which is Android, right? And then Siri's again underlying operating system is iOS, and Cortana is based on again Microsoft Windows and integration with Office, which these are very popular software. And similarly, Facebook is trying to develop things around Messenger as a platform, and now WhatsApp as a platform to provide new capabilities and services and so on. And then the biggest player is, which I was kind of missing in the link, was Amazon, right? And Alexa on the whole ecosystem of devices. And in last just 2 years, I think first devices were introduced, which are called smart speakers, which actually use this platform technology. They were introduced 2014-15 as something new and different. And like 2018, there would be 58 million devices shipped into customers' homes. So growth rate, whatever be the, so year to year, actually, what have been the projections by the marketing companies, research companies, it is overshooting those expectations. So in a sense, people are liking this idea, and which is what, like hands-free from anywhere in the room, you can communicate with its device. Right now, it's giving you answers, performing utility tasks, but then it can do computing and other things later on as well. So that's where it is there.
No,
So they are not open. Yeah, let's coming back.
I
Yeah.
understand that they are not open and they are closed, but when you think about the complex security challenges that would emerge from that, because like you said, there are so millions of devices being sold, that are based on all these platforms. And then, each of these platform has a closed ecosystem. So if there is any security challenge, then, it's going to be very difficult to manage the complex security challenges, because there are going to be lack of standards. All of them will be operating with different standards. So it's going to be interesting to see how we, go forward on that. But it seems that any single interface with digital devices that we can think of at this point can either be replaced or augmented with these AI enabled conversational interfaces in the coming years, if not now, in the coming years. So, would you say that AI is the new user interface amidst a culture that is driven by automation? And as we see, everything, all business processes and everything are in the process of getting automated. AI is going to be the de facto standard, and it will take over most of the business processes, or even the government processes, and it's going to transfer fundamentally everything in how we do things. So how do you see it changing the nature of the human ecosystem, irrespective of whether it's a government, industries, organizations, and academia? And even further, if you think about it, that how would we be communicating with not only the computers, man machine, but also how will we communicating with animals, or insects, or anything that you can think of, plants that's growing in our yard, or or in farms. Everything we will be able to use this AI interface, and we'll be able to communicate with them.
Yes, yes. So that's very interesting question, and it obviously has a big implications towards future. So stepping back, so all these AI at this stage, AI interface and conversational AI interface, especially again between device to device and device to human, it sits on top of underlying computing system or computer operating systems. And for example, three dominant systems are still Android and then Windows and iOS, right? So for all the machines and robotics, the ecosystems are revolving around that. And obviously Amazon have their own, Samsung have their own. So that's why things are evolving around that. So obviously, so the level of let me address the first issue which you mentioned in this question or comment was about the risk and security and privacy issues and risk spreading through these devices and so on. It would be similar to the dominant operating system, computer operating system, because at the end of the day, because to think of these conversational AI is not the underlying computer operating system, it's the UI UX, which is what you correctly pointed out. It's the machine human interface that is changing. So now let us coming to the second part of question as to where it's coming and where it's going. So one key thing, and there have been market research reports and my own experience, and I can give you an example, is that why is it so popular? So a key part which I think it is turning out to be a game changing, which when Amazon introduced, means Siri was there. If you think about it, like Apple had Siri as a voice interface, right? But still that really did not click and did not introduce anything new. And it picked up only after Amazon released Alexa through Echo Dot, Echo, now Echo Show. It's a family of devices. So that family of devices called smart speaker. So what happened was that a smart speaker could be anywhere in the room, and you can come. It's like when we human talk. If two humans are in the room, then I don't have to go and touch them. Like all these touch-based interface, think about like touch screen, right? Or all these computer or desktop, laptop means I have to really type text and all those things. So that goes away, right? And I could be anywhere in the room, and if I say, "Hey Alexa, what is time of the day?" or order my food, so that gave human being a freedom to operate, to be anywhere in the room. So that's the essential thing. And at that point, it started to click in. Means even if, and my basic premise is this, let's assume that Amazon had released Alexa on Kindle kind of flat devices where you have to hold the device, then people will still not be realizing that what is the big implication. Biggest implication is it really frees you as a user, as a human being, from sitting in front of a computer. And that's a big deal, because that gives you a lot of freedom. Your mind can think, you can look outside the window, or you can, like in my backyard, I can look at the pool and flowers and think on my creative things and still work, right? That's the creativity and thinking part of it. But on top of that, this is the biggest thing, and this might be a funny example. Like at my age, if I sit on computer or like working on computer for 2 hours, my back hurts, you see. And last 50 years, we are sitting in terms of flat screens for entertainment, and then computers like TV. Irrespective of how big or small screen is, it's really like you have this focus perception, and everything is going away, because then you can just think and talk. And if you have a smart conversational AI in the room, it will catch up what you're saying. And if you're asking it to perform a task, it will do it. If it can do, then it will do it. If not, maybe say I cannot do it. Or, and at the same time, like it can tell you jokes, it can sing songs. That's what it's doing. Like, so that kind of a unifying factors that kind of plugged in. And so after Amazon, Google jumped into it, Apple has jumped into it, Sonos, quite a few speaker makers are jumping into it, and this market is growing at a very fast speed.
Yes, absolutely. So it seems so. I mean, you are right that it gives us mobility. We don't have to just sit on the chair and look at the screen all the time. We can do a lot of things, and we look forward to that. Where even if I want to write my book, or I'm writing something,
Yeah.
I don't have to sit in front of the computer. I can just dictate that, and it's already typed and ready to go. So that those are amazing advances. So do you think that it's time for everyone, each entity across NGI, that means governments, industries, organizations, academia, everyone, they need to start evaluating the disruption that is coming their way because of these voice-based interfaces?
Oh yes, yeah, yeah. So at least as far as I'm aware, both enterprises, I would say, in Jenny, anytime when new technology comes in, and then when consume, and especially many new technology, actually, if they're highly technical thing, they come through enterprises. But then if you think about it, in this case, it did not come through enterprises. It came through, means, of course, chatbots, text-based chatbots were there, where you still have to, let's say, type on your smartphone or a laptop or something like that, right? But this purely voice-based interface really came, and everyone got aware of it through consumers. So enterprises and business and industry immediately took notice of it, and that's where the race has started. Because now there's a because devices themselves are making like billions of dollars for these big players, but at the same time, then the enterprises also realize it. So in that order, so let me say, so West has adopted to it, and the number I told you about, like a projection of 58 million devices shipped, that's just US market. And then you add on top of Western, like this is, and it's not US, it's North American market. Then you add Europe, and then Asia and Japan, Korea, no, China. China actually is highest is still the US market. Then China is number 2 with 4.4 million devices shipped, and rest of the world is about 13 point. That's the actually projection for 2018 is. And I do, because I originally am from India, so I do keep track of things there through newspapers. So I started to see some news and things about it in the newspapers and websites and so on. But I would still say it's not there yet, means people have not realized it. So that's from the industry and market perspective. And because I was at NASA and I know how government works, at least in the US, and so agencies work. So they have taken note of voice interface, and they are also adopting it. So again, first Western government will do it, then Asian government and India and other countries will kick in to that. And so you're right, everyone has to be aware of it, because it could dynamically change many things. Means even office structure, how you make offices and how people work, habits will change. So you have to be aware of that.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, how do you see businesses integrating this conversational AI to their digital initiatives in the coming years? Do you see some trends?
Yeah, so at least, so what is happening is this trend wise, at least, so there are three, I would say, even in the, let's say, there are like two steps have happened. First, initially, these text based chatbots came, which kind of were prevalent in customer services industry, or like even the when you go on to call center, right? Sometimes someone comes on the website and start typing text for you, and you can communicate. So that was the first step. Then they realize is in a text to text communication, if they but there was no AI in the beginning. All I'm saying that approach came in first. Then they started to introduce AI. Then they realized that if they can introduce AI into it, they can automate some of those functions, and that introduces certain efficiency and cost saving. But then now with the purely voice-based interaction, not text-based chatbot. So certain industries, they kind of were the early indicators that something is happening, which really come from tech support, customer services, and also those kinds of, or inquiry and so on, those kinds of services first. And now it's being followed up. Those are industries still will be the lead, but then with the conversational AI and voice based capability now, which is with then lead into call centers and customer services, tech support call center, that will get automated. And then even like when you go into a mall or a hospital lobby, hotel lobby, and all those things, many of the greeting information and those functions could be performed by a simple machine just being there. It need not be a full robot. Like it's just being there with the display. Like or think about it like which is actually I'm pushing the thing. Even we are making something like that. Is right now even when we watch TV at our home, consumer, right? It does gives us entertainment, but also there's a pre-programmed and also a passive entertainment, right? You can choose, but once you choose, then you have to watch that thing for half an hour, or you have to switch 10 channels. So things have started happening. So now switching channel would be voice based, right? Or you can tune it to and so on. But at the end of the day, that technology is already coming that you can interact with your TV and you can have the characters and so on. So that would lead to next year. So there are many. It's coming from different kinds of sources and pools and directions and so on.
Sure, sure. No, I see the value of it because I'm thinking that if someone visits risk group website,
Yeah,
then there could be interactive dialogue that, okay, what are you interested in? If you are interested in AI related roundups, then these are the different roundups that they have been done. This is what the research that has been conducted by risk group that may be of interest to you if somebody is
yeah,
interested in blockchain. So that kind of interactive dialogue could make it really very exciting, because right now everyone would have to go and click on the categories and then see how many
choose
roundups
right.
are
Yeah,
there. So it's very different, but I mean, this is where we are right now. But in future, if we are able to develop that, it would be very interesting that people who are visiting risk group website, they would have a really good time, because it's not going to be dull, just clicking and typing and looking at things, but they would have. And then even also, if there is a capability of summarizing, like each roundup, that okay, you don't have 1 hour to listen, then let's just give you a short summary of this. So if that capability is that would be pretty amazing. I hope
yeah, it's
that.
coming up actually, and we are like, and other people are coming up as so there are two pieces to it, like a capability for of AI to scan documents and summarize thing, understand it, and then maybe make a short abstract or short point, so which is what you're saying. So based on what your interest is, or you can just ask questions. So it's a basically a two-step process in all AI. First you have to train it, but once you have trained it, then you can release it to the public. And then of course in the beginning it would be maybe 80%, 85%, 90%, or 70% accurate, right? But then more and more users use it, then it gets trained on to the use itself, and
Yes.
then accuracy start to increase from 90, 95, 97, and so on. So there are quite a few new areas are opening up. Another, when you were talking, another example that came to my mind, which is what also looking big into, is like smart cars or self-driven cars or automotive industry, right? So think about it. Even in the automotive industry, when we drive, especially long distance driving, for example, here Bay Area, San Francisco to LA, 7 hours drive, or nighttime driving, uh, people have a tendency to feel tired, feel fatigued. And in the nighttime driving, even if they have drunk coffee, then after 2 3 hours they start to feel sleepy and something. So it's not that they don't have interaction or they don't have entertainment, they don't have information in the current car, in the sense you have radio, you have CDs, and you have even some displays and so on. So things are there. So key difference which you mentioned, which could be again on your risk website and so on, is the interactive engagement, which is different. Uh, that when, even if you put a news channel on or a music channel on, then your mind gets tuned off after 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes. It takes over. But interactive entertainment means I'm listening to what you are telling me and I'm responding to you. So
Yes.
it turns out that even and there have been studies, even myself, like I drive a lot, but if I'm on a phone, just even a phone call onto, I'm not saying with a robot now, but in future it could be like that. But like if I'm on a phone call and driving, I don't feel tired because my mind is thinking
Yes.
and I'm more engaged. Similarly, people always say that for nighttime driving, if your front seat companion is talking to you, then you don't feel sleepy. And if this talking is interest, of course, if the talking is boring, then of course you will feel sleepy. But
Yes.
if it, so that's where the key part is also, that's the next step, is really engaging you. And once we get engagement, of course, everything has both positive and negative, but once we get engaged and it's a positive engagement, then
Yes.
happiness comes in, satisfaction comes in, and then you don't feel tired actually. And you don't feel at my age that backache, even if you're driving 5 hours or 2 hours. That's my clear example. So in a sense, many times I think about how I'm feeling and what I am feeling, what my body is feeling, and then try to pick up a problem so that if it can work for me, then it will work for others as well.
Sure. No, you are absolutely right that the dialogue and involvement and interaction is so very important. And as we are trying to develop these interfaces that could be used across industries, across nations, I think one challenge would be that they will have to, be familiar with all the languages, because human languages are there are so many of them and they're so complex. I mean, even in United States, if you see, there are people who speak English, people who speak Spanish or and Mandarin or Hindi or Gujarati, or
Yeah,
all kinds of languages. So, and I think there are probably 6,000 plus known languages in the world. So
right.
how will this conversational AI develop fluency in all of these 600 plus languages if we are trying to create that global language interface that everyone can communicate with everyone without having the barrier of the language? How would you go forward with that?
Yeah, that's a very good question and very pertinent to the future of this field. So first, from the practical viewpoint, because at the end of the day, if there's a market and a business to drive it, it's going to happen one way or the other. That's why one of my basic assumption is. Now, having said that, there are 600 to 1,000 of languages, and you say dialect and spoken style or accents and all those things, right? But at the end of the day, at least from the market and business perspective, there are 15 to 20 languages per se, without going into the fluency first. So beginning would be done by this, covering 15 to 20 languages. Then now go in the AI part, or think about the architecture of the system. At the end of the day, like when I speak to a computer, right up front, there is a speech to text translation. That part is easy, and that's fairly standard. It has been commoditized and it has been spread into so many languages. So that front end, when I say something to machine, is there. And because of Google and some other open source platform, quite a few languages are already included in that. Now, at the back end, when machine or computer respond, then it's a reverse. Like then it becomes a text to voice interface or voice translation. That's all. So these two are being, I'm trying to say, is already done, taken care of at a fairly good stage. And I have my friends from India. They when they talk, I see they write in Hindi and all those stuff. All these things are there. So that's not a problem. Now the problem comes in is in a bigger sense. That's where the fluency comes in, because then there are nuances, which is called the second step, which is NLU, natural language understanding. But understanding, then there's a contextualization, there's an intention, then there's a local colloquial meaning of that. That's where you're talking about the difficulty comes in. And in that sense, I do agree with you. It has a long way to go. So the way it will evolve will be this. That's what my speculation is, or maybe prediction is this. For the beginning, and beginning means first maybe 1 to 5 years, these really good system in just even 8 to 10 languages would be good enough to really spread the devices, applications, users, business, government, everything, right?
Yes.
Then you have, which is what you say, go into even, let's go to India, like you have a 23, 25, some number of languages, right? So that will happen, because that really, and many times this happen really depends on, and it will happen precisely the same way. How big is that market, right? How driven the people are, market about products and services at the end of the day. So either it's going to be driven by some government thing, or but mostly market. So that's where it's a local culture and local nature of the people come in. And my example would be, let's suppose like it's being exposed to, and this is just an example, not to do a comparison, but you understand that. Like let's suppose it's being introduced to India in English, right? Then there are regional languages. And then basically some of the more outgoing entrepreneur regional language people, they will drive it. They say, no, we want in this language too. And then it depends on the entrepreneur natureship of someone from North India, South India. I don't know that. That's up to them. Or like, but so there are technologies which is available, but you are right that when you go to the nuances, we do have a long, and which is really the next stage of development, because if you have to think about it, conversational AI is the technology of future. And now let me step back. Actually, we are at the first step, which
Yes.
is what I say. It's not there yet, but potential has been there, market has been there, and devices have been there, and now big players have announced, and we have also done some demo, and is there. And so, but it has not reached to that specifications and maturity. But it will happen. It's a matter of, like you can say again, 5 to 7 years or 10 years.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, it's not everything can happen, immediately. This is the first step that the scientific community, technologists have taken, and there is a lot more that can be achieved. But when you just talked about the potential, yes, I mean we have visualized the potential, we see the value of it, but we are talking still only about the man-machine interface.
Yeah.
But when we are talking about the capabilities of artificial intelligence, I think we can go much more broader, much further. I mean, there are a lot of animals, for example, that they can sense if earthquake is coming, or if there is going to be a tornado, or if the weather is going to change, or anything. A lot of animals and insects and birds, they have that capability to see the things that we are not able to see. The humans, they have the capability to see the changes happening in nature. So if the artificial intelligence is focused on them, and if they develop that interface to communicate what they are seeing to humans, then the value that we will get from this, technology that we are developing, the conversational AI, that is going to be so huge, because we will be able to solve so many problems that we humans are not able to solve with our own intelligence. If we use the intelligence of other species, then this artificial intelligence, the platform and the interface that we are developing, that could provide a tremendous value. But that is still a long way, probably 10, 15 years. But that is something that scientists like you, the technology people like you, can think about how to take the advantage or how to benefit from the intelligence that is ants and insects and animals that they have, that they can predict things. They know when the earthquake will happen, they know when the disaster will hit. How can we benefit from that, and how can we use these platforms to get that intelligence and communicate to humans in a manner that we can understand effectively? But that will be dialogue for some other time. I look forward to talking with some scientists about it. But let's look, to have this human like conversation involves a deep understanding of the domain and the context. So, do you think the algorithms, AI algorithms, at this point are able to achieve that?
Yes, yes. Let's start. But let me also address your other part actually before giving you the answer to this thing, because I think it's a very and this is first time I'm hearing that concept of going to communication and learning from animal intelligence or animal sensing capabilities as well. So I like that idea, and it registers in my brain for future. But let me step back and say is this way. Partly objects and things are being digitized, and that field is called Internet of Things. You may have heard that, and I'm sure on the risk roundup someone may have talked about, which is what it is, right? You're putting sensors and devices into things, like, and that's the whole thing. Like we have our, let's say, conversational AI by itself in a dongle or a USB thing. So I can just plug it into my lamp, and I can plug it into my washing machine. I can plug it into my piano or something, and it will give them capability to talk to me, but talk to me in a conversation or language which I train it on, and means that's a human thing, right? So that part, I have no doubt it's going to happen. It's already happening, and there's a market for it. There are uses for it. That field is already there, just to clarify. But the second part which you mentioned, which is pushing the envelope. So there are two ways. A is a two-step process, is understanding the intelligence or the perception or intuition of an animal, right? That's a skill set. That's how I factor things. That's a skill set. So once I have to learn what it is, and then create the similar capability in artificial or smart sensors with sensor with speaking capability. So that would be the kind of transformation, but that's certainly feasible. So your idea, I like it. And so it's not that all of a sudden, and actually reality is I do have a dog. I have a big German Shepherd. I would not like him to talk to me like another human being. That would be really boring. I want to, like, I like him to being a dog and be my friend, right? And he gave me so much love and affection. So I'm saying is there are parts is there where we would not like to change it, but then from the interaction we can learn and
Exactly.
then replicate those things in the digital devices and digital capability. That's what I'm saying.
We don't have to talk to the animals, but see, the animal senses. For example, my dog, I have two Yorkies, and one of that is very sensitive to thunderstorms. So when the
Yeah.
weather is going to get bad, she would go and hide under the couch. So that is just, I mean, we can see that, okay, something bad is going to happen because she's, getting scared. But these kind of, we don't have to talk to them, but these kind of visual indicators, like, animals would start, when the weather is going to get bad, they would just start going away, hiding, birds will fly away. There are a lot of visual indicators. If we can train the AI
Yeah.
to see
That's
that,
certainly
understand
doable.
that,
Exactly.
then
That's
we
certainly
don't, we
doable.
don't know. I mean, it would be nice. I would personally like to communicate with all animals and birds and every living thing out there. but we don't have to do that in the first step,
Yeah.
long term goal. But if we can even use their
Yeah,
intelligence.
use this at this stage. That's near term. That's all I was doing. So now coming back to conversation. It is at first step in the sense which I said right in the beginning. All the voice interface at this stage, which is the first stage of conversational AI, is mostly utility or command base. They understand your simple sentence, simple voice command, and then perform that task. And my example again would be like Siri, Alexa, and so on. So even the big players are the next stage is instead of simple single sentence means a series of sentence it understand. Then you have like a human understanding and how do I train my AI onto that, which is about what is really the context of what I'm trying to say, what is really the meaning of what I'm trying to say, and is there everything upfront or there's certainly I have to understand through intuitional part or intention part. What is the intent? Because the way human being interacts or human conversation happen. So even if you just take a complex sentence, so textually it could have 3 or 4 or 5 keywords where it could have 4 or 5 meaning just from your emotion in that sentence or tone in that sentence and the voice level in sentence, then we have this ability to perceive. It took long time. So that's why I'm saying, so that also gives you the idea. So these are some of the next steps. So what we are trying to do is first went from a simple command based interface, which is already done, is doing pretty good. It's a matter of building more and more skill sets, more and more functionalities into it. Now, second is going into really making a conversation. So it's not just one sentence, it's a contextual thing. In a sense that, let me give you the example. Let's suppose if I ask Siri or Alexa, tell what is weather today, right? So that's a command and it will tell me the weather today, but that's pretty much it, right? There's nothing to talk. But if it's a contextual, it tells me its temperature is this, so I will complain, oh, it's very hot, then it becomes a follow-up conversation, right? So we are kind of pushing that envelope. And next stage would be now you start to introduce human part of it. So what do I mean human part? Which is really like, and I wrote some white paper, is that as a target wise, there are 4 E's of 4 E's I call them. It's called human emotions, empathy, and entertainment leads to an engagement. And then if you come back to it, when I was talking to you about the situation of a driver in an automobile, right? He feels or she feels less tired, more happy. If it's a positive engagement, and that could lead to companionship, right? Sometimes we just want to talk. So if you think about it, and that's where we are trying to actually differentiate, and there's a big market for it. It's not that, because at the end of the day, if whatever I want to do, if there's no business for it, no one is going to fund me, right? That's the hard reality,
You
is
made a
that.
very important point. Sorry to interrupt. You made a very important
Yeah,
point of just needing to talk to someone. And if you look at the United States and probably each country, that there is such a growing, rising loneliness, especially in senior citizens, old people. So I mean, creating these kind of tools that they can talk to someone. They wake up and they can have an interaction. They can discuss, their how they are feeling. What they would like to do, what they would. It's just that interaction. Right now, if you see, the loneliness is one of the most leading factors
cause.
that create so many human diseases. So if by using this conversational AI we are trying, if we can create a system or ecosystem where everyone will have someone to talk to,
That's right.
irrespective of whether it's an old person or young person or kids, because kids also, many kids are growing up very lonely because they don't have anybody at home. They are, parents, both parents are working, and they don't have anyone to talk to. So if we have tools or platforms that we create, that everyone can use that and can have that interactive dialogue, they won't feel lonely. And probably that would help create a lot of healthcare challenges also we are facing.
Yes, yeah, that's precisely, yeah, and you immediately caught on to that point. Because there are improvement in the healthcare systems and people are living longer everywhere. It's not, average age has been increasing across the world because food is better. Of course, there are problems too, but I'm just saying in general, people are living longer, and situation is such that everyone cannot be with their elderly parents and so on. And similarly, in all the major countries and major metropolises, the living style is that both couple or husband and wife have to work, so then kids are alone at home or elderly is alone at home and all those things, right? So actually a kind of key domain that we are trying to address as we talk, like we are trying to introduce these elements. So in that sense, actually, and that also creates an opening for us. If you think about it, I can clearly say that whatever Amazon and Google device in this field, their ultimate, that's the business part. Business part is this: their aim or goal is to, in their business model, to try to make money off you, right? So, and which is what the same customer service and any enterprise use is really based on efficiency. So if I have a business use for something, then in the enterprises or for like e-com or ordering pizza, it's better it has to be done as fast as and efficiently as possible, because if my AI can put 50 orders of pizza versus 100 orders of pizza, that's better, right? And they are making this default system, so their AI is going towards that direction. But at the same time, there's a big thing is, and it's already there in the US and Western Europe and Asia, Japan, even China, Korea. People are living longer and they are lonely and they are elderly, and their other faculties are going down. So at that point, they do need these elements of human, and that's why I said these four E's, and that has been in my target now, is empathy, emotions, and entertainment. And if we have that, then that could, it's just the quality of life. But then again, there is there is a business model there, in a sense that homebound healthcare and elderly care is a big thing. So if the device has other sensors, other features, and 360 camera, 360 degree, we can provide all other things. But the first part is, can it just makes the life of that elderly better? Or even if I am, let's say, working in San Francisco and I have a young kid at home, so with the current devices, I can just call and say, hey, what you're doing, you come back from school, did you do homework or not? But kid can say anything, yeah, I did. And but then he could do anything you like. But if you have a device with 360 camera display and the talking, speaking, so I know precisely what is he doing. So of course that gives for parents a use case scenario. But then reverse of this is that it's a privacy issue, right? But if the parents have that permission to talk to their kid, then it's fine. If not, then people will take care of it through rules and regulations. So every technology has both sides to it.
Of course. Of course, but it could be that there's such a positive, benefits that can emerge from this, because there is so much value that can come out of it. Not only loneliness, even for example, I was a few months back. I was in my when I was home in my backyard. I was moving my bird feeder, and somehow there was a hole that my yard guy, had forgotten to fill, and I tripped and I fell.
Yeah.
Nobody was home that time. I fell and I could not get up. I thought that I have, some damage probably in my brain, because my head hit the brick, and I was afraid to get up because I didn't know what was, the problem. And I tried to, nobody was home. I didn't have my phone with me. I don't carry my phone 24/7 all the time with me. So if we have these kind of tools where we can wear, I mean, we have these iWatches and all those, tools available, but they are not that effective here. So if we create a tool that, anybody can use effectively, just call my husband or call my daughter or call, 911 or whatever, then they can effectively immediately call without, much problem. These phones and all that, it seems very outdated now. We need to create new tools that are more effective using this conversational AI, because these are the things that we need if we want to create more efficiency, more affordability, more accessibility, and more, benefit benefits, real time, benefit, if you want to provide to consumers, to everyone, then we do need to take this next step and use this conversational AI so for the benefit of everyone.
Right.
But that having said that, my daughter was so nervous. She started, searching that my mom, I need to get her that something to wear, but she can, I said, I'm not old now, that I need to wear that. But at the same time, we do need those capabilities. Everyone
Right.
needs that because
It's going towards that, yes, and it's certainly doable. And especially with a voice-based interface, then as simple as a thing, what you're saying, what the situation you're talking about, a simple locket in your necklace or something like that, if it has this embedded voice interface, and that's where the key difference comes in. Even all the current devices, you have to touch it, you have to punch something, and that's a 2, 3, or 4 step process, or sometime even if it's a big phone, you have to pull it out of your pocket and so on. So if near your this upper body region, if you have something, even a small thing, then that gives you the capability that you can talk to other devices around you, or then put a call there and talk to anywhere. So some of these things will be taken care of automatically, and that's the key difference in this interfaces.
yes, that's the benefit, and those are the amazing advantages that this conversational AI interface, platforms will give us. And I look forward to seeing those advances in the technology that will come, that will benefit everyone. And we can create variables, like you said, with this interface, and that would provide such amazing value. But having said that, let's talk about how, if you are an enterprise or any organization, irrespective of whether you are in industry or whether you are in government or anywhere, if you want to pursue this conversational AI project capability, or if you want to create a chatbot, how do you go forward? How do you decide that how to, whether this conversational AI is something that you need to explore further for the benefits of your initiatives, or for the benefits of what you have, visualize, what you vision you have? What are the main criteria that would be important for them to decide if they should pursue, the conversational AI project?
So maybe it could be looked at from two levels. One, you're talking about enterprise or government, and second is maybe individuals, and so on. So from the enterprise and government, it's always connected with introducing some level of efficiency, cost saving. It means there has to be some benefits to the enterprise and government. But but from the government viewpoint, they have to be also careful, in the sense whenever they include any technology, especially the new technology, and if they are not aware of it, it does introduces efficiency, new way of doing things, but at the same time that it just opens up their weaknesses as well, security related weakness and practices related weaknesses, and that's what the risk comes in. So I would say, at least from their enterprises are generally smart enough, they do their due diligence and they do spend time into it, and they could clearly, like with even some few months involvement on a specific use case, can figure out what are the risks involved, what are the benefits involved, what is the cost saving, what is the efficiency, and so on. So they can decide. In the government, sometimes it is not there. Part of reason is because they work mostly a little bit on a longer term time scale, and responsibility factor is still missing. So there is a tendency to really just get onto the bandwagon just because it's popular. So all they have to be just aware of that, what are they trying to do, and does it has a specific benefits for them, and if there is no risk and no leaking of the information and no conflicting values and so on come into the picture, or no, or they are not dependent on any outside organization and all those stuff, so it's clear. Now, other part is which you are asking is let me try to understand, is more from also from individual perspective. If it's going to be next generation of interface, of course, the users and use cases, people will learn from each other, and once anything gets popular, it will spread. And my example is like WhatsApp, right? it is spread like anything, and I'm one of the late adopter to that. But at the same time, people, those who are working like technical people and who would like to get into AI, who would like to get into conversational AI and really start thinking in terms of from the technology perspective, business perspective, interest perspective, and even future career perspective, right? So there are very clearly defined platforms are there. They could get familiar with those languages they need to learn, which is a typical case happens is that. And so what they need to be aware of it that certain thing in any technology get which we call as commoditized, means it's open source, everyone, their brother and sister can do it. So then they have to figure out what's the next level of difficulty. So that depends on which stage of the career they are at, and they can target to learn that skill set. So let's step back. So for example, even to build such systems, conversational AI or AI itself, like obviously, which I mentioned, you need a lot of translators, you need speech to text, text to speech, then you need which is called natural language processing, natural language understanding, and then getting into the next level, which is intentions and all those things which I was talking about earlier. Then obviously there are major operating system and languages in which so they need to be familiar with it, and there you go. So you are this thing. Now, in terms of broader area of artificial intelligence, again, at least these bigger companies, because they do need people with the skill sets. We do need that. And it turns out that because AI is hot, at least good quality, it's difficult to get good quality people, well-trained people. Means as a tool, anyone can push buttons and write few lines of code and can use it. But to really understand and then use it to do something more creative, that's where the challenges comes in. And it's a process, like it's a part of education, it's a part of training. Yeah, exactly.
You're absolutely right. No, that is a part of a journey that everyone individually will have to go through to decide what makes sense for their initiatives and investments. But since conversation is our go-to way of exchanging information for between man and machines, or for humans and machines to work together, they need to be able to interact in a much more natural way, as we have been discussing for almost 30 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And I mean, there is going to be need for new hardwares, and there is going to be need for also computing to evolve, because while the move towards this conversation might seem like a natural progression of human computer interface, this computing also needs to advance and evolve at the same time. So how do you see computing evolving, or which areas of computing you see that will need to evolve for us to be able to benefit from this conversational AI?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So if you think about, especially in the current context, if you look at all the big players, that's where like Google, Apple, and Amazon or Facebook and so on, it's all already like a cloud. Means whole backend exists and stays on the cloud, right? So that's where you have the servers, databases, major compute thing happens there. So and then also, so having said that, so in a sense you can say if you are looking at those default system, this brain or AI part actually stays in the cloud. What you have at the front end is a lot of communication of the signal or the voice command is getting, and then the communication of that to your brain in the cloud, and that's where a lot of databases and brain and all the AI part exist, and it churns that machine and you get the answer comes in. Answer could come in terms of a simple voice-based response or getting information, give you response, or performing some task. So having said, once you know this basic architecture, that is a kind of a de facto architecture is happening. But there's the other side to it. I'll say it in more. But that's the dominant architecture. Is all these AI-based devices, which is the same in IoT, like internet connector. These are all cloud-based things. So especially in IoT-based devices, the Heavy load is done actually on cloud, and a lot of answers like early days of search engines, they have already been done and categorized, so that's why your answer comes very fast. So similarly, when AI has been trained, then it is there and answer comes very fast. On the new query or new situation that becomes a new data, then it trains itself, right? So what is happening in terms of try to address your question, like on the hardware side, uh, 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 new chips and new compute board and new technologies are developed by all the major now hardware player. And if you know about it, Intel and Nvidia are big players in that, and they have these GPUs, which is the same you're using for blockchain as well, right? So, but at the same time, besides GPU, they are all the big major players, even some of the not so well known players. Everyone is developing their AI chip. So a lot of these they are optimized, and their design architecture, everything is optimized where they can use technique like deep learning or Bayesian networks and so on, and at a very low power and very fast thing. So there's a base hardware is being developed, right? Then boards that go with it is being developed. So that's one part of the hardware side. Now other side is the front end devices. That's where the Echo or Google Home or Apple's HomePod is really consumer facing or user facing devices. So we have a device up there, that's where a 360-degree wraparound display, 360 camera and 360 speaker is your that's our device into the same ball field, right? So these are the new devices and hardware being developed. Now, now, at the same time, now other popular fields like databases and queries and those things is also new things is which is already there actually for in last 5 years. Is that previously in, like you can say, 5 to 10 years base, everything was unstructured data, like well-defined tables and columns, right, which is with Oracle and so on. But right now is the unstructured data. The difference is all your music file, video file, or sound, anything. So it's just in zeros and ones. There are no tables of columns of numbers. So all the technologies which is developed for unstructured data in the databases and manipulating them, that's another area evolving as fast. So having said that, you see, like, so you have the cloud-based technology, you have a specialized chips being developed, you have new database technology, and everything put together, where there's a lot of communication is happening between the front end device, which could be a robot or a smart speaker or a smart TV or a smart display, and the cloud, which is giving its smartness. So that's the current dominant architecture is there. So if that is the architecture, then immediately you realize is that because there's a lot of communication, so networking, also new devices, new routers and all those things, AI based routers and all those things are coming up. So there's a lot of things are happening because people have started to see the potential, but that also will create the limits and bandwidths that if you think about it, just sending a text file or even a voice file to the cloud and doing the processing and giving you the answer back is rather simple, because if you think audio files are simple, but sometime depend on what the query and what the task is, that task has to be accomplished with a lot of video files, image files, and all these kinds. So that will create its own bottlenecks also. Then how do we do so in a sense, a lot of underlying, that's what I'm trying to explain, is underlying contributing technologies, but some of those were already happening because of the popularity of cloud and big data and analytics. Those are other fields, but now the features are in those technologies are being developed where we are introducing AI into those pieces. That's the broad architecture is. And other side comes in is that, for example, someone mentioned to me is that what people are thinking and what we are thinking is that for everything, if you have your AI technology and if you can put it on a dongle, on a USB or a locket size device, then of course for all your answers and everything, basic functions you can still do. It does not have to communicate. all the time with the backend cloud.
Yes.
So you could localize it. So that would be the next level. And at that point, it could become low powered and low efficiency devices and so on. So that's the broader area.
Yes, no, that seems the right way to go, and it would be. I really look forward to having those capabilities. But as you and innovators like you and companies like yours, are trying to develop these capabilities, what complex challenges you are facing, and you think that you will face in the coming years to make this into a reality?
Well, so again, like if I was working with a bigger tier one corporation, then all you have to write is a proposal, and if they buy it, they will throw resources at you. So first thing that first challenge I face all the time is you always work with a small team and less resources. But at the same time, that attitude I have developed. I do not have to limit my ambition and so on. So you have to really think that that's part of the picture, where you say, okay, my team is 8 or 10 and my compute resources are small and blah blah blah, right? What I can do in how much time, in how much cost, which could still be, it's just one thing. People have to just think and say, oh wow, that's it, right? It's different and it has some value. So at that point we can make it. So in that sense, and that is why, like, if you then go back to it, when 2 years back this company was founded, at that point this Alexa and so on was just starting, and I could immediately see that this is a command based system. So rather than in getting into conversation part now, that initially when I made my goals and so on and I filed some patent, it's really right off the bat that we will focus on conversation part, right? So then we are lucky that by the time they release their demo, and we can release their demo too, and it's doing pretty good even with limited resources, right? So similarly, so all you have to keep track of what others are doing, what their resources are, and then where we are going. So in that sense, rather than address the big area, because we don't have that, so we focus on the human part, because the way I define is this, which is actually an interesting issue which I don't think anyone is addressing. So let me give you some cue cards in there, even though I should not say it, but it's a part of, and they will realize it too. We say it human machine interface, right? Conversational AI is a human machine interface. So if you look from in general industries approaches, everything they want to give it to the computer or a robot or the AI to really understand and respond to you. But I say no, there's a flaw in that logic, because human machine interface has two parts. There is a machine part, but there's a human part. So irrespective of, and it could be like 10, 20, 30 years down the road, yeah, AI would be perfect. So it could behave like a human, but it's not there. It's not going to be there for next 5 years, 10 years, but that's where our opening is. So right off the bat, if we focus on the human part of, and then try to alleviate the issue which is being faced by the human, and that's why some of the specific examples I was discussing is really more from the human part, because in our initial user survey or user group who talked with our device, I saw there's a big variance in the data. Some kids or some technology familiar people, you ask them, hey, sit with my device and just talk to it, right? So they would talk. There was a guy, old guy, he talked for 1.5 hours because he had that patience. He's willing to, because he wants to talk, right? But at the same time, there are people who feel uncomfortable. They don't know what to say to device. So after one thing, and they learn from the TV and advertisement is this command. So, but how many commands can you get? You say, okay, tell me the weather, play me the music, or play this video. But that's pretty much it, right? So there is a human part. Over a period of time, the human part, which is what I'm trying to address, human itself will evolve.
Yes.
And that's a bigger issue coming up, and because you always can learn from backward, and even and then I can project it onto the future. Let's go back 50 years when TV came in, versus then computer came in and smartphone came in and mobile phone came in and so on, right? At the same time, you see more and more people are wearing eyeglasses. That's evolution. It's happening at a very fast pace. But in my mind, it's not happening over thousands of years, but it's happening at over 50 years. More and more younger kids and people are wearing eyeglasses, contact lenses, getting eye surgery done, and all this blah, blah, blah. Okay. So, what would be the reverse of that? And that's next 50 years. If I take away these flat screens, right? And my near term, like with a TV screen or a smartphone, that's what we are going. Then if you think about it, voice based I can close my eyes and then interact with it. So hopefully if voice based interaction becomes predominant, maybe human will evolve back again and eyes will start to turn healthy. This is how you project onto the means human itself have to evolve. And then so what are the other faculties? So and that's where this thing comes in, is that for example, I say ability to talk, right? It's not uniform even among human. You mentioned there are shy people, there are lonely people, there are, forget the robot, and no, maybe they will feel more comfortable with a robot, but with other human they are shy, they are not comfortable, right? It's a matter of, so those are specific elements where the behavior will change, and behavior could change for good or not good, right? But potential is there. But in general, then I joke about is that, especially for with my even in my family wife and in my company also, if the conversational AI you just take it in the jokes, if conversational AI comes in, then women will have some advantage over men because there's a data. Men don't like to talk,
Yes.
right? So I'm saying is so slowly and slowly with this comes in, so there would be next level of evolution, but that's what it's always happening, and that pace is accelerating, and so on. So then now let's focus on the conversation part.
Yes.
Is that ability to listen to someone, ability to get the intention, because see, in the early stages, robot is a more precise meaning driven, but human converse differently. How do we build that element but building that element is not totally depend on the device itself, because the way human perceive that conversation is also changes from person to person, right?
Absolutely.
So that's where we are trying to focus, that's where we are trying to push, and we'll try to do that.
No, I think that's an excellent idea, because while a lot of people are focusing on computational intelligence, machine intelligence, we have to focus on human intelligence, because that evolution has to go hand in hand. If humans are not going to evolve, if their intelligence doesn't evolve, and if we keep addressing only the computational intelligence and make computers more and more smarter, and that intelligence takes over human intelligence, is going to be disastrous for human race and humanity. So we
That's
have
the risk. Yes, exactly. That's where I was going. That's the risk, and that's the disruption. We don't want to go
on that.
towards that side, right? So at the same time, lot of right now, because it's in the early stages, it's really focusing on that. But given a chance, even with what we are trying to do now, is always trying to think more from the human viewpoint, and then see what would be the comfort level. How can I build in so that effect should be is to enhancing the human rather than which is what the danger, or some speculation of the danger is replacing the human, or maybe limiting the human behavior, right? So
Yes.
at least I would like to be in the camp where my or my companies or my future projects AI's goal should be into enhancing the human in one way or the other.
No, that's the right strategy, and that's way to go. Because if you think about the all the humans across nations, everyone has talents, everyone has intelligence. It's just that they don't have the right platform, or they don't have the right way of getting heard, or giving their viewpoint. So if we have to, our focus is to go towards collective intelligence, because the challenge is that nature of the risks that are coming our way, security risk, there is no nation or any government or any institution that can manage those risks on their own, or even identify those risks on their own. Because of this do it yourself movement and democratization of information, anybody right now, with the CRISPR technology and synthetic biology advancing and everything,
Right.
anybody can create an organism, entire living organism from scratch. They,
Right.
a very smart computer scientist can write a computer code of, human genome, I mean, and or any genome, and any human probably would be very difficult at this point, but any, the small genome, and can create an organism, by itself. So if, how are we going to know where, somebody is trying to create a pathogen, a virus or a bacteria or something, and that is coming your way, that could, create a pandemic, or epidemics, and these are the kind of risks that are coming our way. I mean, sitting somewhere, someone can wipe out the agriculture of, an entire nation. These are the challenges that we are facing. So how are we going to identify these risks? How are we going to know who is developing these kind of products, I mean, these kind of pathogens or any other product that could wipe out humanity? That is not possible to, we don't have a capability right now to identify those pathogens or who is developing those pathogens, because you can mail order, there are labs who would do certain things and send it to you. There is no way to know all these things. So
That's right.
how to do that? We need to take benefit from the collective intelligence. We need to create a citizen armed force. Everyone should be looking out, across, nations, that where, if somebody is doing something that seems like, would create a disaster for the community within their nation or other nations, then there, that we need to create an incentive system where, people feel that, no, I need to report this, I need to, make sure that, the right people come to know this, so we can prevent this disaster happening. So the collective intelligence that needs to be developed, and for the, especially managing security risk, it is so very important. And I'm working on that, we're working on that to see how to make it very effective and how to develop that. But to your point, yes, we absolutely need to increase human intelligence. We need to evolve human intelligence. The so far, over the years, human evolution happened only because of this, genetic evolution happening. But now we have the capability that we can, uh, rapidly increase that evolutionary process, and we have to focus on that. So I'm glad you are working on that, and I'm glad that you are, and scientists like you are addressing those very critical areas. Having said that, what would you like to tell our global viewers and listeners, and especially those young minds who are passionate about solving problems? Where should they focus?
Oh, where should they focus within AI or conversational AI, or yeah?
Conversational AI, or if you want to give broader response to that, that's fine.
Yeah, so there one thing is there, because that's broader, is more in the AI area. We already, and others, much more famous and well-known people beside me have already recognized. It's like any other technology. Think about nuclear technology or fossil fuel technology. In the beginning, it's for the good of the society, and it does good. And but at the same time, like it has the adverse effect also, right? And then that's where the risk management and the rules and regulation and monitoring and all those things come into the play. So similarly, in general, broader, AI does have a scary part to it, in a sense that it could become, because as long as data is available and the learning technique is built into it, and it can figure out what is its power source system is, and basically it can train itself. So it becomes a loop. It can train itself to be smarter and more dominating, more powerful than the human being itself. So, right. So that part is called, and at that point it could become, and then since AI is there, then AI driven, that AI, which is that area is called AGI, artificial general intelligence. So AGI, AGI conceptually could be able to build even the mechanical devices, robots or machines or something, and could go against that. So that's where existential threat, like any, which is you are talking about the pathogen, it could come from this. Earlier, it came from nuclear energy or those kinds of things. So similarly, AI also itself has a dark side to it, right? And those things, again, my view, and it is there that over a period of time, like people do recognize, identify it, and of course there would be some people who would like to drive towards this, some organizations, some countries might like to drive towards it, but at the same time, in the broader level, then rules and regulations and the limits and all those things come into the picture. So everyone hopes that it does not go towards that way, right? Or let's try to be in a active voice in opposing anyone who's trying to do that. That could be the individual or a group or a region's contribution towards that. So, having said that, so that's more from the risk idea that you were describing and so on, so that even younger minds, in one sense, it could be fascinating to work on AI which could train itself, but then they have to be aware of the dark side of it as well. Similarly, robotic devices, they are fascinated to work on it, but then there are dark side, certain things which we want to make. And there have been robots that have been built, which could really, and they are already being demo and so on, and some of them could be on defense related contracts and so on. Especially the company like Boston Dynamics have demonstrated, right? You have seen those robots, they can run faster than a tiger or a dog, and they can think, they can see, they can, like almost really like you have seen these movies, right? Terminator kind of. So they have the physical capability. And there have been the demo that if human oppose them, they really push away the human as well. So those are the kind of the thing. So so having said that, and having shown the darker side of any technology, which is what we are talking about, AI and robotics here, there is a wave actually. For example, that happened within Google, it's happening within Amazon and so on. Employees and scientists, they're coming out within the organization themselves on their internal forum and boards. And because these are the driver. At the end of the day, it is going to be driven by these big corporations. They have the muscle resources and the brains and the compute power and the resources, right? So they are coming out, and specifically coming out, and corporations are listening to it. I think Google already said that. So that they are asking, they are not going to develop or use or develop any AI for defense contractors. So in a sense, so that's where some of the areas. So younger people, anyone new, has to be. There's a wave, and similar thing is happening at Amazon and some other also. So when technology comes in and people are aware of the dark side of it, so there is a human reaction to it. So what I'm saying is, it may not be that well known, this thing, but technologically aware people and in places like Silicon Valley, we are aware of it, and there is a reaction to that, right? Having said that, when younger people are coming, so they have to choose. So if which is more from education and training and the career perspective. So the way I look at it is this, that a person has to decide. I never, like, even when I grew up, I never put a career or a job ahead of what I want to do. And even from very young age, I always, I said, well, we'll see. And then fortunately, I survived in each scenario. And each time I survived, I emerged stronger. And right now, that gives me a lot of independence. And also, that gives me actually figure out a method to jump into a totally new field where I say to myself, I don't know anything about it, but if I put 6 months on it, I would be as good as anyone else. So these are some of the I'm not saying boasting, but this is the kind of the rules you have to lay down for yourself. With the age, you will pursue different skill sets. Different age, you'll pursue different skill sets. So there is a system to that. So having said that, in my mind, and especially if suppose this goes to younger generation in India. They are so career driven, so job driven. Even here also it's happening, right? And brand name, all these things is changes, right? You have already seen that college tuition, college thing is so expensive in US. People are really pursuing their passion. So in that sense, let's coming back to having given the general perspective in robotics and AI, they have to choose what they like to do, and then they can. This field is big enough, then they can find a way to do that. Let me give you the example. If it's a mechanical bent person, they like to play with their hands and build things. They can go into the robotics, and it's a maker movement. That's where 3D printing or solid state design and those things come in. If they like to more think in terms of the mathematics and so on, they can go into the deep science of mathematics underlying this technique, because at the end of the day, there are still algorithms, right? If they like to code or want to spend a lot of time with coding and something, they could get into that part. So it depends on what they, because at the end of the day, at least my advice and my experience is that, which is different, is that if you're not happy, then you will always be miserable person. So something comes on the cost of something else, but that has been my philosophy. So in that sense, they could choose. The field is big enough, and that is why. So some people come into, okay, I will not develop the technology, I will not develop the mathematics, and I will not develop the even the mechanical part, but I want to make something product, right? Which is what the human interface is. That's become actually something new is coming up. If you think about it, if it's going to be conversational interface, then my this is my speculation is because once the programming, coding, and the technology has been developed, and machine can build its own machine, and intelligence can start to build some smaller. So what do we need? We need more content creation. So there has to be some focus back on to even liberal arts discipline. Someone likes to be an artist, someone likes to be a language expert, right? And that's why already there means of course it's one thing to use current NLU tools or NLP tools. NLP means natural language processing, right? No, specifically in conversation or natural language understanding. That's why I say understanding has these nuances, right? But so one is really from making the tool and then applying the tool. But at the end of the day, my perception and belief is some person who is really working on improving the NLU technology, they have to be language expert. Means they have to love the playing with different languages, and also what does it really mean? What is the intention? Which is we are getting into more real like a philosophical or philosopher realm, right? And at that point it starts to become interesting. So based on that, and the way the audio data is being communicated, shared, and so on, way the video data and the image data, I think at the end of the day, if AI and robotics become really predominant, so it will happen. It could happen is that jobs would be taken away, and we have to figure out what would be the source of income. But then let's suppose having problem that there would be more focus on the liberal art discipline. So if there's a very young person is there, they're interested, they should just pursue their passion. If they're good enough, they will survive, and they could be expert in application of AI into figuring it out next generation of human robot or human machine interface. And I can give the example. That's what we so it's like you push the envelope, like with the pure voice based interface. Amazon did a wonderful thing. They said that you can any, which is where we started when we started talking about this interview and talk, is you can, key part is, which is what is the key part? Key part is you can talk to your machine or interface with your machine from anywhere in the room. That's what these Amazon Echo or smart speakers given that. Okay, so when we filed the patent, came up our response. So with a simple 360-degree display and a 360-degree sound and a camera, So what we are saying is, even though this thing is not moving, it's on a table. So I can really address to this device, which has the speaking capability, which is conversational AI, but also it goes with the audio visual. So you have already expanded the field, because if you have a 360 display, so again, I don't have to be sitting on anywhere. I can really look at what device it is. That's what. So that's how you try to push and think through it, and see what you could do, which could really give you some kind of an edge.
Absolutely. No,
So so
yes.
so for example, my learning lesson. Okay, Amazon put it voice-based interface. So can I make it voice plus visual interface? That seems like a next step, but it could be big, it could not be big, but that's what you do. You just push something more, right?
Yes, we have to keep pushing forward, and we have to focus on the passion that we have. We have to find a
That's
profit.
the key, actually. That's the key. My advice to all young people is, I know that they have to sometime go against their parents, sometime they have to go against their friends or something like that, but that's life. If means you should do what you want to do and you enjoy doing it, and you can think yourself that,
Yes,
okay, yeah, I could be passionate about it.
yes.
Then you do it. Otherwise, there's no point.
Very true. No, that's excellent advice. So thank you so much, Dr. Srivastava,
Thank you.
for participating in Risk Roundup today. We appreciate your thoughtful insight on explaining the conversational AI, and our global viewers and listeners would benefit tremendously from the understanding you provided on the state of conversational AI. So even if a single individual or entity can understand the power of the AI voice interface that is rapidly advancing to redefine and redesign how man and machine communicates based on the understanding they received from the discussion we had today. This risk roundup dialogue has been of service, and we thank you for that.
I thank you and appreciate you for giving me this platform to express my view. And I think you have created a very nice forum, and it goes long way towards increasing broader awareness of all these new technologies and how it's going to affect everyone, countries, nation, people in future. So I appreciate that.
Thank you so much. So
Thank you.
advancing the ability of computers to interact with us in a more natural way is critical for the AI human relationship to reach its full potential. AI human or man machine relationship to reach its fullest potential. Risk Roundup, a global initiative launched by Risk Group, is a security risk reporting for risk emerging from existing and emerging technologies, technology convergence, and transformation happening across cyberspace, geospace, and space. We at Risk Group believe that risk management, security, and peace, they walk together hand in hand. Though security is related to management of threats and peace to the management of conflict, risk management is related to management of security vulnerabilities as well as management of conflict. And it is not possible to conceive any one of the three without the existence of the other two. All three concepts feed into each other. We believe that the security we build for ourselves is precarious and uncertain until it is secure for everyone across nations. Tradition becomes our security. So, if we build a culture of managing risk effectively, it will lead us to security, and security will lead us to peace. So, let's manage the existing and emerging risks together. For more information on the risk roundups, to watch the risk roundup webcast or hear the risk roundup podcast, please go to riskgroupllc.com and do not forget to subscribe and share. Until next time, I'm Jayashree, host of Risk Roundup, signing off. See you next time. Thank you.